Party in Miami. Miami.
Hello, golf fanatics. Billy Ho Sports is here for the preview and the research show. This week we are back over in Texas, the Dallas Fort Worth area, McKinney, Texas, to be exact, for the Byron Nelson. It's now the CJ Cup. Gonna be a week off for many players, but we've got a pretty solid field so far. Needing to play. We're shooting for that $9.5 million purse, 1.7 to the winner. Year 4 for it to be held at TPC Craig's Ranch. By the way, today's stats will be powered by Fantasy National Golf Club. If you want to join up, I'll put a link in the description. I don't get anything for it, but just use code Mayo for the discount or whatever. So why don't we go ahead and get started? One quick plug before we get into the golf. This is Kentucky Derby week, and this is my wheelhouse. I live in Louisville, Kentucky. I'm just a few miles away from the racetrack. So if you are playing the horses or you like to play the horses this week and you want some valuable info, race replays, past performances, analysis, everything, go check out my content on the Kentucky Derby. I've got a Kentucky Derby Trail playlist, which has almost 60 videos in it worth of information. My most recent ones are all about the Kentucky Derby. You can just hit those up. There's going to be about a half a dozen of them. It's the only place you need to go, be honest with you. So anyway, this year's is CJ Cup, like I said, McKinney, Texas, TPC, Craig's Ranch. It is Texas. Wind is in play. The outlook definitely looks Wednesday. Looks windy. I don't trust wind finder as far as I could throw it, but 15 miles per hour sustained winds, and even if it ballparks in the 25 plus for gusts, there's problems. Thunderstorms likely Thursday, 90% plus potential for severe storms. Could possibly suspend play. Gonna make it pretty tricky to predict wave stacks. So just keep checking back with the weather, and by Wednesday night, wait as late as you can on it if you do plan on stacking, or if just plan on leaning one way or the other and sticking with it. But I would stack both ways, just in case something happens and you get a stoppage in play and they have to come back Friday, and that flips the whole thing. So TPC Craig Ranch, about the 4th, 5th easiest course ever. Designed by Tom Weiskopf. It's like a resort course, par 71, 7,400 yards and change, 13 water hazards, or 13 holes with water hazards, I should say. But, they're pretty easy to avoid if you're not a complete suck ass. So the fairways are Cavalier Zoysia grass. As you can see a lot, they're very fluffy. I used to be all about hashtag Team Zoysia, but I'm not so much more, like I would research who's good on Zoysia grass and on approach and all that. But I just, they play, there's enough of it out there now that it's just like it's really similar to Bermuda, the way it sits up like it's on a tee. So, the rough, actually, speaking of Bermuda grass, 2.5 inches. The greens are pretty decently sized, above average, I'd say. 6,778 square feet. Bent grass again, so average speed 11.5 on the stem. So getting into the course, the front 9 at Craig Ranch is where you can get some birdies, and where you do need to do some scoring. That's where you got the 2 par 5s. You got the 1st, the 3rd, and the 6th holes are all short par 4s. Like I said, the 2 par 5s, number 5 and number 8, have a 3 to 5% eagle rate and well over 50% birdie rate. So if you're not birdieing them, you're giving away shots. Back 9's a hair bit tougher. It does have the drivable par 4 at the 14th. So a short par 3 17 and the easy ass par 5 18. But the rest of the holes can be difficult. There's 3 of the hardest on the course. 12 is 493. That's a par 4. Then you have 512 on the next hole. 13 And then later on, number 16 is 492 yards. That's the number 1 ranked hole on the course. So I think even though the weather might be shitty, they're still going to be pushing 20 under, in my opinion, on Sunday. I did mention in the weather report before, but the weather over the weekend looks like it's calming down. I think there's a day or two, day and a half, so to speak, of some stormy weather, high winds, all that kind of good stuff. So now we're going to jump over and share the screen, look at some fantasy national stats. Okay, so let's start off by looking at some tournament history. Obviously, Jordan Spieth played here a bunch. He didn't play last year, but he has played 2 of the 3 years that they've had it at Craig's Ranch. Obviously, second T9, pretty solid. KH Lee back to back. We've all heard that ad nauseum. TPC Lee, all that good stuff. Ryan Palmer. Haven't heard a whole lot from him this year, so I'm not really trying to go course history anyway. So this is just, I kind of sort it by strokes gained total, even though there is only 3 years of stats at Craig's Ranch. Trinity Forest was the previous one. It had Zoysia grass. It had big greens. It's just a slightly different easy course. So it's not really that far off from Craig's Ranch. Sun Kang won that one. There's a lot of Korean influence in the Texas area. So you're going to see a lot of guys like Kang and Lee and all that stuff, Jaeger bombs. So these are just kind of some guys that I like to go through when I look at the tournament history. So then the next thing I like to do is look at the breakdown. And like I was saying before, here's your front 9. You've got 51%, 3.1% eagles on the 5th. Then you got 40% on this really short par 4 here. The 5.2% eagle rate on this one. So maybe if you want to add in your stat model, I didn't do it, but we'll look at my stat model. I got a couple of different ones and a mixed condition model also. So just kind of give you a variety of things to look at, variety of things that the Fantasy National website offers, which I'm really enjoying. By the way, so grip it and rip it strategy. If you go down here, you can see this is the back 9. I told you about these holes 12 and 13, back-to-back toughies. Number 1 here. And then you still got a few like 9 and 8 and 9 on the, but there's super easy par 5 finishing hole, 47% birdie rate. So this gets into the main stuff, the average strokes gained for top 10 finishers. You can change this if you want to go to see who fails to make the cut, the trunk slammers, or see what they did wrong. I usually don't do that, but it's kind of an interesting take if you want to do the opposite effect. But basically, the trunk slammers are going to be the guys who can't putt, because everybody's going to probably have more than enough opportunities to make birdies, but they are not going to get there if they're missing putts. So ball striking, obviously, short game is slightly relevant, I'd say, but greens and regulation are way up. That's the stroke gain. Obviously, par 5s are just vital. If you're not tack on the par 5s, you're done. Fairways aren't overly important. I like good drives and driving distance. Then the strokes gained approach. If what you're looking at, I know this is like the 200 plus range is like, oh, this is way high, but this includes par 3s and things of that nature. 200 plus, I'm not doing proximity on 200 plus. I don't care who's the closest. It's such a noisy stat, but I would pay a little more attention. We've had a lot of these 150 to 200 ranges. I actually used just the 175 to 200 just as a bucket, just to get an idea. You can see how much less wedges are used. So, but you do have some average amount of under 100, which is going to be a lot of the layups on the par 5s if you're out of position. If you want to add in, you've got 6 holes. 6 of the par 4s are between 450 and 500. So if you wanted to use that for a bucket, that's pretty good. Using like the driving distance strategy, accuracy is a little bit down, so it's probably more grip it and rip it. You can see green and regulations way up, scrambling's up, I think, because people are whacking it out there farther. You can see the driving distance is really pushing 300. So, but scrambling is more like when you fail to hit the fairway and then you manage to make your par. That's kind of scrambling. So you can play around the green, but I'm not going to be that into around the green. But and you can see the average distance of putts. I like 5 to 15 feet. These two areas right here are your sweet spots. 15 feet is the ops gained. In anything inside of that is opportunities gained. So bigger greens factor in 3-putt avoidance. So let's go look at the first of the models. This is just a my 2024 Byron Nelson. This is last 36 rounds. I would prefer to go a little tighter. I'm going to go 24. So you can see in the shadow here, good drives, driving distance, strokes gained approach, scrambling, ops gained, birdie or better. I put a lot of the scoring stats, DK points in par 5. I weighted approach the most, and then I kind of divvied everything up evenly, a little bit heavier on the par 5 scoring. I did put in here 450 to 500. So that's that. And so what we're looking at here is this is my mixed condition model rank. I always just go ahead and sort that. You can see Spieth comes out on top. Then you got Lipsky. Excuse me. But things of Siwoo, Charlie Hoffman. I love Charlie this week. We'll get into that when we talk about players. You can see Spieth hasn't been playing all that well. At the end of the video, I'm actually going to have like just a little mini starter player pool with just some variety of players where I think will be priced up high to mid to low. So just the one guy I did want to look at was Jordan Spieth because I was just curious. The heritage, he was terrible. He should have tripped and stumbled his way to a top 10 there. But he's been off and on. He's been really good and then really shitty. Missed the cut at the Masters, missed the cut at the Valspar, missed the cut at the Players. I mean, he's just so freaking erratic in what he's doing. So I'll be looking at ownership with him anymore. If he's highly owned, he's a fade. That's why I didn't include him in my final pool. You will see that. He has had good history here, like I mentioned before, the 2nd and the 9th, which is fine. But then this is another model. This is kind of an interesting model since we talked about how windy it was going to get. I did a Texas wind model. I added in a bunch of courses, I forget the Texas courses and whatnot. This actually didn't show up. Actually, I apologize. What I was going to do was do moderate to windy AF, which we'll just do that real quick. And because I saved it under these conditions, but it didn't save it. So anyway, but we'll just do the under the windy conditions and see how things shake out. And what I would do under windy conditions is look at proximity and see who's really good at proximity in the wind. Cheese, I'm probably not going to be really high on cheese this week, but Henrik Norlander, not a bad guy to think about. Nate Lashley, you'll see his name. Obviously, Seabez is in the mix. You can see a few guys here. Vincent Norman, double R. The weak field and lots of birdies to be made. Double R Norman. Definitely somebody I'll be checking off. Willie Z. This feels like a good course for him. Although he's not a supreme scorer in the DK department. But you can see he's 4th in moderate to windy. So that's not terrible. So this probably ought to be more down to like 12 rounds just to see with the last 3 tournaments they played when it was super windy, how they did. That way we're not like seeing some sort of tournament from 2 years ago. So we'll see what proximity looks like there. See, you can see Norlander. Roger Sloan wouldn't be a bad guy. There's Charlie Hustle. So things of that nature, that's how I've been getting down with these models. This is the mixed condition, and this is how I did it. You can see easy to average fairways, over 7,400 yards last 36. Hitting fairways, same thing with par fives. Good drives, ops gain last 12. Putting on bent, 5 to 15, 10 to 15. And this is just kind of how it broke down. This is the probably the one you want to look at the most. You got Keith and Willie Z up top. You can see how bad Willie Z is with the putter. So that's going to be an issue. Keith ain't much better. So, take that as you will. You can sort this by like, okay, who's making the most birdies? Charlie Hustle, Sung Jae. And actually, I just now noticed I haven't really gone through the whole field, but Sung Jae M's in this field. I'm down with some Sung Jae. I played him at the at the RBC Heritage recently, and he did pretty well there. Sam Stevens is always a good guy to play. So players like Mitchell, Zalatoris, Benny On, this could be a good place where maybe he finally breaks through. Aaron Rye's a good one. Doug Gim, Mark Hubbard. I really like the way Mark Hubbard's playing. Nate Lashley, I mentioned. KH Lee is not a bad guy. Him and his partner playing really well at the Zurich Classic right now. So is Charlie Hustle. He's dragging Nick Watney along for the ride. So, guys like that are just and cut it there. And you can see in the background the guys, all the guys I just mentioned. I didn't have Spieth in there, but you can have Spieth. There are some other guys like M, and there's plenty of research to do over this week. Remember Derby week, check out the playlist, subscribe, like, all that kind of good stuff. I appreciate you kicking it with me today. Best of luck this week, and we will see you soon.